Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 11 of the On Deck podcast. I'm your host, Roberto, and happy opening day, everybody. This is coming out the day after opening day, but man, am I happy to just have baseball officially back on. In today's episode, we're going to be going over some standouts, some history being made, and, some legends of guys continuing to grow. So off the top, I just wanted to shout out guys like Cam Smith and Christian Campbell. Both of these guys worked really hard in spring training, and, they basically forced their way onto the major league roster with how they are performing, and both of them in their first games got their major league hit. Cam Smith saw it in his first at-bat. Christian Campbell's came a little later in the game, but both these guys are going to make an impact on their respected teams. Personally, I think Cam Smith is going to have, a bigger impact because I think there's more potential with him. In this game, he was playing right field, and usually that isn't his main position. He's more of a third baseman. But obviously you have Isaac Paredes there. But out in that outfield, he can give you some kind of value, even if he's decent out there. They are playing Altuve out in left, which I still find funny. But both of these guys are going to be in the running for that Rookie of the Year award. And this, especially in the AL, you have tons of guys that are able to go up there and grab this award. So it should be an interesting race come the later part of the season. But now moving into some of the standouts that I had for opening day, we immediately have to just talk about the legend of opening day, Tyler O'Neill, because at this point it's getting kind of crazy. He homered last night, and this was his sixth straight opening day home run. Sixth straight. That is absolutely insane. And he's played for 3 different teams in this span. The Cardinals, obviously. Then he was last year with the Boston Red Sox. And now this year signing a 3-year contract with the Baltimore Orioles. This guy he just loves opening day. And honestly, I don't blame him. One of the best days of the year. And honestly, I might have to throw down a bet next year and say 7 straight opening day home runs. Can he do it? Let me know in the comments below if you think he could do it. I think he could do it because why not? It's already 6, major league record. Why not extend it a little more? Make it 7, give the fans a show every opening day and basically you can put it down in the box score. Tyler O'Neill home run. But even with the rest of that Orioles team, they were just putting on an offensive show against the Jays. Final score of 12-3. It was guys like Cedric Mullins, Adley Rutschman, Tyler O'Neill, Jordan Westburg. Everybody was producing in that lineup. And honestly, if the O's are going to be hitting like that, maybe they don't need an ace in that pitching staff, because if you're going to score 12 runs a game, you can afford to give up 6 or 7 every couple days. Especially when you're running out guys like Charlie Morton and Tomoyoki Sugano, guys that, you aren't really expecting much from. They did pick up Kyle Gibson a couple days before the season started, which, I do like that pickup, especially with not knowing how long Grayson Rodriguez is going to be out for and what his rehab process is going to be like. How is he going to be coming back from that tricep injury? And you can always pencil in Kyle Gibson for 160, 170 innings at a low to mid 4s ERA. Him and Lance Lynn the last few years have just been like the certified innings eaters, and every year they're going to get a contract to do so. So I kind of like that pickup for the Orioles, but that is a pitching staff that can't be trusted unless they are scoring 12 runs a game. But now moving on to some more history being made. Mackenzie Gore pitching against the Philadelphia Phillies, who I think still are one of the better teams in the MLB. I'd say they have a top 5 lineup, especially guys with Harper, Schwarber, Trey Turner. You can throw in a guy like Alec Boehm, who necessarily didn't have a great second half of the season post All-Star break, but the potential is always there with him. But yesterday, they just didn't have it against Mackenzie Gore. Gore went 6 innings, 1 hit, 12 punch-outs, and 0 walks, which is a great step in the right direction for him because he did rack up a fair amount of strikeouts last year, but his walk rate was very high. And that's one thing I'm looking for this year when it comes to his starts, just cutting down on the walks. The stuff is there. Obviously, he's been one of the highly sought after pitching prospects for quite a while, and especially now with the Nationals, he has the potential to be that ace of that staff with Josiah Gray being out for an extended period of time. I'm really buying some Mackenzie Gore stock this year. I think this is the year that, he breaks out into an all-star, looking to be, a top 25 pitcher in the MLB. I think it's easy for him to do so if he, limits the walks and continues to strike out guys at a high rate. He did have a little bit of a home run problem last year, so cutting down on that is also something to monitor during the season. But again, I think he can do it, as the Nationals are, they're not going to be in contention anytime soon, but I think they can be a very, very fun team to watch with guys like Dylan Cruz, James Wood. You have CJ Abrams still there. They brought in Nathaniel Lowe through trades. And I think Luis Garcia Jr. is going to have another great season for them. So this team, isn't going to be in contention this year or even next year, but still, again, a great team to watch. And to have this young core stick together for as long as they can, I think they're building something here in Washington for sure. Now, moving on to two teams that, aren't necessarily the greatest. We had the Angels play the Chicago White Sox, and this game was an interesting one. In the first at-bat, Mike Trout gets hit on the hand, and as a baseball player, I was holding my breath a little bit. I was hoping, it wasn't something that was serious. Mike Trout, as I've said many, many times on this podcast, is one of the greatest players that I've watched and one of the greatest players in this generation of baseball. And I just want to see him healthy and win one more MVP before he retires. And to see him get hit in his first at bat, of course, kind of, I got flashbacks. But he stayed in the game, and he ended up having two more at bats, and no hits, unfortunately. But this game was quite interesting. Shout out Sean Burke, by the way, 6 innings, 3 hits, 3 Ks against the Angels. I know the Angels lineup isn't, anything to be wowed at, but 6 innings from a Chicago White Sox pitcher, only giving up 3 hits is, I'm going to give a round of applause where a round of applause is needed. He definitely showed out in his first opening day start, but this one was quite a snoozer. We had the White Sox win their first opening day game since 2023 by a final score of 8-1. And the funny thing in this game is that we had a position player pitch, Nicky Lopez, who honestly I didn't even know was on the Angels. He pitched 1/3 of an inning after the Angels had deployed Ryan Johnson, who also has something interesting about him. He is the first pitcher out of the 2024 draft to make an appearance. Didn't play a single game in the minors and was just immediately called up to play for the Angels. And this is quite a head scratcher, in my opinion, because I don't think he was showing great stuff in spring training. But the Angels, being the Angels, they just love rushing guys from, I would say, the minors to the majors, but Ryan Johnson didn't even play a game in the minors. We saw this happen with a few of their guys like Nolan Shenuel, Zach Neto, and a pitcher from a couple years ago by the name of Chase Silseth. They just love rushing guys through the minors and basically fast tracking them to the MLB. And this doesn't really give them that much time to, polish their game, make adjustments to minor league hitting, which, it doesn't compare to the majors, obviously, but they just don't let their guys develop, and clearly it shows here. But moving on to some better-hearted news, we had the Dodgers take on the Tigers, and we had two dominant lefties going. We had Skubal versus Snell, and this matchup wasn't as great as I anticipated. Both pitched 5 innings. Skubal ended up giving up 4 through 5. He gave up a solo home run to power hitter, all of a sudden, Tommy Edman. I know he's much better against lefties, but from him in the postseason last year to all of a sudden hitting home runs off Cy Young winners now this year, it's kind of crazy. And then we have Teoscar Hernandez going deep off of him for a 3-run shot. And again, this is another one of the Dodgers signings that I really liked. Bringing back Teo on that contract, I think he fits perfectly in that lineup, and he's just gonna mash lefties. I mean, he's gonna mash regardless, but he absolutely crushes lefties. And to see that ball go over the fence and to have Dodger Stadium go absolutely nuts, and then obviously Ohtani has to go deep in Dodger Stadium too. But that environment, especially after them raising the pennant, having Kirk Gibson throughout the first pitch, the atmosphere was absolutely electric in Dodger Stadium. And for good reason too. But in this game, the Dodgers deployed a plethora of arms. Again, you saw Kasperius come in. Alex Vesia, who was closing for them at times last year, came in, got a hold. Tanner Scott, who closed out one of the games in the Tokyo series, came in to pitch not in the 9th inning. And then you had a guy like Blake Trinan, who obviously has been closing for years. He came in and got the save for them. So that's one thing I am going to be watching closely, especially with the Dodgers pitching staff, is who's going to be getting majority of the save opportunities, because they have a bunch of guys that can do it. Like you had Vesia doing it last year. Trinan is well proven to be a dominant reliever and has closer stuff. Tanner Scott, who they signed to a big contract this year, who's gonna get all the save opportunities. Oh, how could I forget? They had Kirby Yates. He was also just quietly one of the better pitchers in the AL last year. They have him there too. And same goes with Michael Kopech. He was disgusting for them as soon as he got traded from the White Sox. So the Dodgers just have so many options out there in that bullpen. But I want to see if it's going to be a closing by committee kind of thing and just see how the game plays out. Like, will they use Tanner Scott in a jam in, say, the 7th inning where they need that high leverage outs? Or do we see, more of a setup where it's the 8th inning and you're going to see this guy? It's the 7th inning and this guy's going to come in if the starter is having trouble. Or even that fireman, even in the 6th inning. Snell is, struggling to get out of that 6th inning. Who are we going to throw in here? I think that the Dodgers team is very capable of shortening games, and all you need is the starters to go 5, and then you could throw a plethora of arms out there to give you those remaining innings of outs, because they got tons and tons of nasty relievers out there. Another game that kind of didn't live up to the pitching matchup that I had hoped was Skeens versus Sandy. We did have Skeens, flash his greatness in the first inning, striking out 2 immediately. But this was also a great showcase of the Pirates bullpen once Skeens came out of the game. They had a plethora of guys come out there from DFA guys of Dennis Santana, who was DFA'd by the Yankees last year, Ryan Barucki, who I remember was on the Jays when he first broke out. We had Caleb Ferguson, who was on the Yankees as well last year and then dealt to the Houston Astros. And then we have one of their better bullpen arms, Colin Holderman. Unfortunately, he did blow the game, which was, quite a surprise. He was as reliable as the Pirates had as a reliever last year, put up a great season. He has disgusting stuff, by the way. A nasty, nasty sweeper, and then an upper 90s sinker it's a deadly combo, but didn't have it last night, unfortunately. And neither did David Bednar, who had lost his closer job to Colin Holderman last year because Bednar was just not right out of the gate and didn't have it at all last season, which was unfortunate because I think he was, one of the couple bright spots on the Pirates staff. But this is a team whose bullpen necessarily isn't projected to be very good, and they kind of blew the game for them. Holderman gave up 2 earned, and then they have David Bednar try to come in and get, these final outs, but ended up giving up a walk-off single to Kyle Stowers just down the right field line, staying fair and ending the game for him. And I think these two are another couple teams that, necessarily aren't going to be good, but have players that you're going to want to watch. Obviously, we have Sandy coming back from Tommy John, and he wasn't as sharp again as we expect from Sandy. Did have 7 strikeouts through 4 2/3, but had 4 walks, which isn't very Sandy-like. He's usually a very good control pitcher, especially with that high velo, which you don't really see too often these days. But guys like Sandy, I'm looking at a guy like Xavier Edwards to see if he can produce again. I kind of like him as a contact speed guy that isn't going to give you much defensively, but is going to hit close to 300 for you, is going to steal you some bases, and is going to produce, I think, at the top of the lineup for them. And some guys to watch on the Pirates, obviously, the obvious clear-cut answer is Paul Skeens. Every 5th day that he's going to be on the mound, it's must-watch TV. And he was sharp-ish today. Pitched 5 1/3, 3 hits, 2 earned, 2 walks, 7 Ks. This start obviously doesn't make you jump off the couch and be like, oh my goodness, this was a great start. But it is the first start of the season. I think he's only going to get built up over time, obviously, and just continue to be a workhorse for the Pirates. I think another guy to watch, obviously, is a guy like Oneil Cruz, who is going to be playing center field for them. And I think that could be an interesting transition. Obviously, he has an absolute cannon of an arm, and he's very quick out there, so I think he should be able to produce at least a positive WAR defensively. But I think offensively, we could see him take a leap as well. Not focusing so much on playing defense and having those errors be a mental block for him potentially. I think we could see a Cruz breakout, possibly an all-star. Who knows? But Cruz is obviously someone I'm going to be watching. And then Brian Reynolds, I think, is someone to be watching. He's been easily their best hitter throughout the last 3-4 years. And I just want to see him become a little bit better in the field. Has never been a great defender, but he can't be as bad as he was last year or even the year before. So just being a positive impact defensively, I think could bring this team a lot more value. And then I'm looking, he's not currently playing, but I want to see Andy Rodriguez come back and produce for him. He's a very dynamic player. He's a switch hitting catcher, super athletic, and I just want to see him back on the field. I know Joey Bart has taken over the catching duties, and Henry Davis being not a full-time catcher, but not a full-time outfielder, so he's kind of bouncing between the two. I think once Endy is back from ACL surgery, I'd like to see him take majority of the catching duties, especially taking them away from Joey Bart, who was just a contingency plan last year until Endy was able to come back. But that's one guy I'm definitely going to be watching on this Pittsburgh Pirates roster. But with all that being said, I think this opening day was very, very entertaining. We had a bunch of teams playing, a bunch of very crazy games to watch. The one thing I will complain about is having the games kind of clumped in just one time. Majority of the games were at 4 o'clock. I'd like to see them spaced out a little bit more. I think with all the teams that were playing yesterday, you could have had a game from 3 to 10. Every hour there's a different game starting. So, we don't have to be flipping through channels. Can finish one game, be able to turn back another game on. That's one thing I didn't necessarily like with this year's scheduling, but we'll see what happens for next year. But with that being said, that closes out today's podcast. I hope you all enjoyed listening to my thoughts on opening day, and let me know if there's anybody that I missed as a standout for opening day. I always love hearing you guys' inputs on the podcast, and especially, going back and forth with me on some takes that you might have. So with that being said, I appreciate you all. Don't forget to rate and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It's greatly appreciated. And we might have some guests coming up soon. So stay tuned for that. I think you guys are going to enjoy what I have coming in store the next couple weeks. So leaving you guys with that cliffhanger, thank you very much for listening, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.